They coming back around. What is up, YouTube? How y'all doing? Diddy breaks down in tears when judge announced prison time after jury's shocking verdict. That's the name of this video we're gonna react to, man. I'm getting a little sleepy, so I'm gonna play one of my songs from my album. The album is dropping August the 1st, man. We're gonna have links and stuff in there y'all can support. Please support. It's gonna be on all streaming, wherever you stream your stuff at. I'm thinking it's gonna be on Amazon if you want to download the whole thing or something. But anyway, check this out, man. This is my favorite one right here. So I'm play this one the most. No, that's not it. This for the haters. How about that? Hey, shout out to the haters, baby. Shout out. We're gonna let it roll.
They hate cause they can't create, only imitate. They watch from the bleachers while you levitate and smile in your face, but deep down it's venom. And every L they pray, but deep down you win them. Now check it. Now you got them pacing in their mama's crib. Imagine moving smart while they barely live. It's easier to talk than it is to grind. So they type in all caps trying to block your shine. They hate what they can't touch, can't control. You the glitch in their system breaking all the mode. You moving chess, they still stuck in checkers. Wasting all their energy just being crazy hecklers. Don't tell a hater what you about to do. Just pull up clean like a sky in view. Whole brand stitch product finished tight. Let them see you glow without them in your light. Put it in their face, but don't even speak. Let your moves talk louder while moving your feet.
Drop your heat on the platform where they screwed. Let them watch your wins while you reach your goal.
Don't fight them out, write them out, work them in silence. Let success be the storm, not the silence. Stay on track, don't fold to the noise. Views hate like a beat, now go flex with noise. Can't show, they can only speak. They can only hope cause their actions weak. They know it's weak, so they lie on your name. Try to dim your spot cause they lack your flame. Don't give them power, they don't have skill. That's wasted energy that you can use to build. Listen to God, let his plans unfold. Then the problem solved and the truth get told.
I had to play some guitar on that joint. With all that effects going on at the end, it's supposed to slide into the other song, but I ain't know how to make it do that. If it was on a CD, when you putting music on a CD or cassette tape back in the day, you can control stuff like that. But now everything is digital. I don't know how to do it. So I just gave up on that part, man. Thank everybody, man, who leave comments. Let me know in the comments what y'all think about that. Love to a hater. A hater. Oh my gracious. Anyway, shout out, man. Shout out to all the subscribers. Thank y'all so much, man. I never thought anything like this would happen to me, man. I promise y'all I'm gonna do the right thing. Wednesday, I'm getting on the plane going back to the Philippines. So y'all pray for me. Hope this flight and all that good stuff go well. And I'm just going, this time when I go over there, I'm gonna chill out. We're going to do a little bit of meetings about the YouTube channel and everything, but most of the time I'm just going to chill out and enjoy life a little bit. Y'all hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell. Let's see what type of lies they saying this time. So Diddy breaks down in tears when judge announced prison time. He haven't announced the prison time or how much prison time. But he did announce that he ain't getting out on bail. So let's check it out. Here we go,
New
y'all.
updates in the Sean Diddy Combs legal saga. The rap mogul gets an official sentencing date. He gets hit with allegations from a shocking new lawsuit. A juror speaks out. And also, apparently, Diddy receives a standing ovation from inmates.
Diddy's world has officially come crashing down. The courtroom went dead silent as the judge read the final verdict, and in a moment that sent shockwaves through the industry, Diddy broke down in tears. This wasn't a theatrical outburst.
I have a verdict in the Sean Diddy Combs trial, but I'll tell you what, this case, not over. No. Important hearing today, sort of. We got to talk about why. Well, Judge Arun Subramanian had sent a tentative October 3rd sentencing date for Diddy on his convictions of 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. Remember, that's what he was convicted of. He was acquitted of racketeering conspiracy, and he was acquitted of the 2 sex trafficking counts. But he was convicted of these prostitution charges. And at one point, there was reporting that defense counsel for Sean Combs and prosecutors, they had then agreed to switch the date to September 22nd. And we thought, okay, because today's hearing was supposed to be about expediting the October hearing. Then they agreed to September 22nd. Now apparently it's back to October 3rd. This is all over the place. Very confusing. We'll get it straightened out. I gotta say it's interesting because Combs' defense counsel had originally stated last week when it was the October 3rd date that they wanted that sentencing expedited, meaning they wanted it to happen sooner. And one of the things that Sean Combs' attorney, Mark Agnifilo, had said was, quote, the mother of some of his children had passed away many years ago. These kids, the 2 daughters here sitting in the middle of your Honor's second row, don't have a parent. Obviously referring to the death of Kim Porter in 2018, mother of Christian, Jesse, Delilah, Quincy. And by the way, remember Sean Combs was denied bail, so it wasn't even like he got to go home after the verdict. But clearly they wanted this expedited. They want his sentencing to happen as quickly as possible. They want him out of jail. They want him out of prison as soon as possible. And also it's interesting because prosecutors, they need time for the pre-sentencing investigation and report. Basically, that's when a probation officer interviews the defendant, looks at the history, the background, childhood, education, employment, criminal history, finances, the mental and physical health of the defendant. There are interviews that are conducted with family and friends. The officer looks at various court and school records, employment records, financial records. The officer could speak to the victims in the case, law enforcement that were involved in the investigation, provide all of this information in a report to the judge, because here the judge is going to have a lot of discretion when it comes to the sentence. What could a sentence look like? Well, prosecutors indicated in a filing that before even doing a pre-sentencing investigation, Combs is looking at 51 to 63 months, a little over 4 to 5 years in prison. The defense seems to be pushing for 21 to 27 months, so a little over 1.5 to 2 years. But remember, Combs has been sitting in federal lockup since September at the MDC. So if he gets time served, he really wouldn't be spending that much time behind bars. Now, of course, they're the extremes. When you talk about transportation to engage in prostitution, the maximum for each count is 10 years in prison. You stack them together, you get 20 years. Okay, based upon the facts in this case, it seems highly unlikely he would get that much. Other side, you get the idea. There's no minimum for this charge. So could he get time served and walk free? Also seems unlikely, in that you're dealing with multiple instances of transporting Jane and Cassie, the 2 victims in this case, and men across state lines for the purposes of sex work. You could say this is an aggravating factor why I don't think he's just going to get time served.
This was real. This was raw. This was a man finally facing the consequences of years of mounting allegations, speculation, and behind-the-scenes pressure. The jury's decision wasn't just surprising, it was seismic. A guilty verdict on multiple serious charges, confirming what many suspected but few dared to say out loud. For years, rumors have swirled about Diddy's private lifestyle, his influence over the industry, and the alleged control he wielded through fear, money, and manipulation. But now, those whispers have been replaced with a thunderous reality: prison time. Inside the courtroom, sources say Diddy's demeanor shifted the second the word guilty was announced. The confident exterior cracked. The designer suit and polished image couldn't hold up against the weight of the law. He put his head in his hands. He sobbed. And for the first time in decades, Diddy looked powerless. The judge didn't hold back. With eyes locked on the defendant, he delivered a statement that made it clear this case was bigger than just Diddy.
Right? You got sentencing, civil suits, a lot to get into. So while Combs was acquitted of racketeering conspiracy and the sex trafficking charges that he was facing, he was convicted of transportation to engage in prostitution. Currently, sentencing is set for October 3rd. However, there is a hearing set for July 8th where the defense will be arguing for the sentencing date to be expedited, to happen sooner. Obviously, they want that, considering Combs was also denied bail yet again, despite arguments from his legal counsel after the verdict that he should be released on bond. It didn't happen. They want to make sure this happens as quickly as possible. But what will he be sentenced to, really? That's the question. And also, will the government seize his assets? What about all of those civil lawsuits that he faces? Again, a lot of questions, a lot to get into. So for all of this, let me bring on former sex crimes prosecutor and criminal defense attorney, the great Matt Murphy is with us. Matt, good to see you.
Happy to be here, as always.
Got to ask you your reaction to the verdict. Is it what you expected?
Well, hearkening back to, I don't know, we were talking about this, you and I, a couple of months ago, and I got to say, whether it's fun to be right or not in a case like this, we're both right. This was never a good fit for RICO for a lot of different reasons. And the consent element regarding the sex trafficking was always problematic. And I thought the prosecution here did a good job presenting their case. They did a good job presenting their theory. But when you match in a trial context, when you match like professorial and kind of plotting, which is the way a lot of government lawyers are, versus dynamic and engaging and that personality of the defense, it's always a mismatch. You're always up against it. And the Mann Act, like we talked about, I thought he was going down on that after like the second day of testimony. The problem is for the prosecution, the Mann Act is a very old law, and it was essentially legislative morality from about 100 years ago, where it was transporting prostitutes across state lines. The intent may have been good. It was essentially a very early version of sex trafficking, but it was really more an attempt to stop prostitution, which is, as we know, never going to happen. So the, almost every lonely guy in New York City who's going through a divorce, who is having a problem in the dating pool, who has some sex worker drive over from New Jersey, if he buys her Uber or his Uber, theoretically, that's a violation of the Mann Act. So that is it's not the same type of crime. There's no mandatory minimum under federal law. The judge does not have to. That. Right. They don't have to. Now, it carries up to 10 years per event. So he faces up to 20 years. The prosecution, I think, is asking for 46 months or something like that. They're asking for far less than that.
If they had called, let's say, Christina Coram, okay, this chief of staff who had been mentioned, I think, by almost every witness, and she said, hey, listen, there was a criminal enterprise, okay? We were all a part of it. Everybody knew what the job description was. My job was to do this. His job was to do this. You think they would have gotten racketeering? If they didn't include Jane, who was arguably the more problematic testimony, I mean, Sean Combs still paying her rent, messages that she was setting up a lot of these sexual encounters. Cassie had messages too that were problematic that showed if we're talking about whether she was a willing participant or not. But if you focus just on Cassie and you didn't call in Jane, or you didn't call in a Mia, or you didn't call in a Brianna Bengolan, if you limited the case, and now it's so easy to play, Monday morning quarterback or armchair lawyer here, but do you feel that the prosecution could have won this case if they structured it differently, if they called different witnesses?
Sure.
That's a great question. And that's something that these prosecutors will literally be wondering for the rest of their lives, for the rest of their careers. They're going to be wondering if they'd done it differently, would the impact upon the...
It was about accountability in an industry that has allowed too much to go unchecked. Fame is not immunity, the judge said. Power is not protection, and wealth cannot rewrite justice. Those words echoed not only through the courtroom, but through every corner of the entertainment world. This wasn't just a legal proceeding. It was a reckoning. And Diddy knew it. 50 Cent, who has been vocal throughout this entire saga, wasted no time responding. Within minutes of the verdict, he posted a cryptic but loaded message. Told y'all, no more games. He didn't need to elaborate. Everyone knew exactly what he meant. 50 had been warning the industry for years about the dark secrets hidden behind Diddy's empire. And now, the courts had confirmed it. The reaction online was instant. Celebrities, fans, former insiders, all weighed in. Some expressed shock. Others admitted they had seen the signs. A few even came forward with stories they had previously been too afraid to share. The verdict had unlocked something. A wall of silence was beginning to crack. What's especially notable is how quickly Diddy's inner circle began to distance themselves. People who once sang his praises, posted tributes, or profited off his brand were suddenly quiet. Or worse, deleting posts.
Count two, that obviously being sex trafficking as it relates to Cassie Ventura. And that was only because of the questions that the jury was asking when they were bringing some notes back. And that was kind of in relation to what had happened at specific instances that the government point out were allegations of sex trafficking. So I thought because of the tone that was inside the courtroom, the way the family was getting a little bit emotional sitting inside the gallery, even Diddy's demeanor, for the most part, we've seen him kind of really keep up his spirits. But yesterday was really a time where we kind of saw, I think, the weight weighing in on him, that it's possible a conviction on some of the more serious charges were going to happen. And so when the jury came back not guilty on count 1, 2, and 4, I was a little surprised, especially to count 2, but, I do respect the jury's decision. They spent a lot of time listening to this case, listening to all the testimony, listening to all the evidence, and that was the verdict that they had rendered.
Yeah. I wasn't surprised that they found him guilty of transportation to engage in prostitution. We have been saying for weeks on this show, that felt like a straightforward path to conviction. Wasn't surprised, not guilty with Jane, given some of the gray areas of her testimony, but also the jury didn't even ask for one readback of her testimony or anything to do with her testimony, so it made me think they might have already been decided there. I was surprised about Cassie Ventura sex trafficking just because, like you said, the readback of that testimony, and then shortly thereafter, they came back yesterday and said, we have a verdict on that charge. So I thought, they're convinced. And when it came to racketeering, I thought they were still going to be hung because they said they were at an impasse yesterday. It seemed like based on their note, there was no way that would change. The judge told them to continue deliberating. They come back today, and like in an hour, they come back not guilty on racketeering. I'm not really sure what that split ultimately will be. Maybe the jurors will speak out and we'll hear. Got to ask you about Diddy's reaction. Okay, so we have courtroom sketches of what it looked like. You were in there. What was his reaction to the verdict?
Oh, he was very pleased with the verdict. Obviously, I think for the defense and the defendant, that being Sean Combs, I think obviously they would have wanted an acquittal on all the charges. But I think given that they weren't a conviction on the more serious charges of RICO conspiracy and sex trafficking as it relates to Cassie in one charge and Jane in another charge, I think overall Combs was very, very pleased with the jury, to the point where I saw him kind of mouth a little thank you to the jurors as they were still sitting kind of in the jury box, as they were kind of leaving for the end of their day. Obviously, we still have some more matters to address for our end. But in terms of just his reaction, even his family's reaction, Jesse, I think they were so happy knowing that there's such a strong possibility that their father will come home. Obviously, if he would have been convicted on the more serious charges, that might have been a different discussion. But given that he was only convicted on count 3 and 5, that being the Mann Act, it seems like given that it comes with a lesser penalty and sentencing, I think the family is like, yes, our father is coming home, our loved one is coming home, and we hope to see him very, very soon.
And talk about a reaction. Outside that courthouse, my gosh, what has been going on out there? There's verbal disputes, people spraying things. What is, just give us a brief summary of what you've witnessed outside that courthouse after the verdict.
I've witnessed a lot, Jesse. A lot was going on. There was kind of, I will even say, pandemonium after the verdict was read. And outside, a lot of Diddy supporters, a lot of people who are kind of with the Free Diddy, I wouldn't say movement, but I guess, they believed in his innocence. They were very pleased, even thinking that it was a possibility he'd just walk outside of that courthouse at some point. But it was a lot of commotion. I did see some people getting to some heated debates, especially in relation to Cassie.
Behind the scenes, sources say the phone calls stopped, the support faded, and the entourage thinned out. Diddy was alone. And as the sentencing phase began, the judge made it clear. This wouldn't be symbolic punishment. It would be real, tangible time. The court laid out a prison term that shocked even the most hardened legal observers. Years, not months, no special treatment, no celebrity loopholes. Diddy's legal team tried to argue for leniency. They talked about his philanthropic work, his contributions to the culture, his role in shaping hip-hop history. But the prosecution wasn't swayed. They presented a pattern, not just a one-off mistake, but a lifestyle built on secrecy, exploitation, and intimidation. And the judge agreed. In that moment, Diddy wept. He wasn't the mogul anymore. He wasn't the party thrower, the trendsetter, the hitmaker. He was an inmate. Outside the courthouse, cameras captured it all. Protesters who had long demanded justice were there holding signs. Supporters showed up too, but even they looked stunned. It was as if reality had finally caught up to a myth that had been floating just out of reach for decades. This verdict isn't just the end of a chapter. It's the beginning of a broader cultural shift. It's a message to every untouchable figure who thought their power shielded them from accountability. That era is ending, and Diddy's tearful collapse is its symbol. As 50 Cent continues to speak out, and more names are pulled into the web of investigations, it's becoming clear. This is only the tip of the iceberg. There are more stories, more victims, more reckoning to come. The entertainment world has long thrived on image, on illusion, on the idea that what happens behind closed doors stays there. But the doors are open now. The light is pouring in, and no amount of PR spin can reverse what the judge made official: prison time. Diddy, once one of the most powerful men in music, is now a convicted felon facing years behind bars, and the industry he helped shape will never look the same again. The fallout has already begun. Endorsements are vanishing. Collaborations have been scrapped.
You didn't tell me if it was unique. $50 million, right?
Yes.
You know, the idea of private security. It was an interesting argument because who would monitor him. It was interesting because the prosecution at one point had said it's not fair, right? He's a wealthy celebrity who's providing a bail package that other people in his similar position wouldn't be able to provide. Now, the defense was like, well, the only reason we're presenting a package like this is because of what he's accused of and his wealth and his resources. We have to address that in a certain way. The reason it's so extensive is because of his wealth and resources. That bail package that was put forward was rejected by the court. What did you make of that?
Well, at that time, the judge was looking at the RICO Act and sex trafficking. So, Puffy was looking at possibly 25 years, or more, depending on what the guidelines were based on if he was convicted. So at 55 years old, at that time, it's almost a life sentence. So, and he has a lot of wealth and he had a private plane. So the judge was looking at that. Plus, in the federal system, they look at danger to the community. Where in the state system, they're not allowed to look at that. They look at risk of flight. So I think with all the letters behind that were coming in that we were not really privy to from a lot of the alleged victims, I think the judge made a decision that, hey, this is not going to be sufficient enough. I thought that at the end, he kind of, when we brought in our private security team and we showed him who was going to be doing it, and we did Sam Bankman-Fried. So we knew that, we would be completely covered on that end. And we gave him the idea of there would be no Wi-Fi in the building that we were looking at, and that he would not be able to really be able to connect with anybody but his legal team and his family. We thought at that point that maybe we had a chance, but at the end, the judge denied it, and that's where we stood. And now on this case coming forward, after the convictions, after he wasn't convicted, at the end, we didn't know what he was going to do. So, when Mark reached out to me afterwards, we started thinking about putting another bail package together.
And what is that bail package and by the way, is this a bail package that you think could be submitted again, even after the judge just denied bail?
Well, the judge denied bail based on the statute, and the statute stated a certain amount of information that part of the Mann Act that, was not eligible for bail. There are certain circumstances that can be done. We're going to regroup again. I know that they were going to go talk to Mr. Combs again and see what happens there. They have the October 3rd date. And, you know, I don't know where he stood. As of the other day, he wanted to get out. You know, I don't think anybody wants to be at MDC where he is. So,
for sure.
you know, we're going to reconvene and see what happens, you know, at a later date. We could go back with another package.
Would that would require him to stay in New York? Would it be him to be? I know he wanted to go back to his property in Miami, Florida. And there's also an interesting question I think that his defense put forward. He just got his life back. That's what they said. He wasn't convicted of the top charges. He was convicted of transportation to engage in prostitution, but he would be a fool to try to violate any of those conditions when
Labels are reevaluating their partnerships. Major streaming platforms have begun quietly adjusting playlists, removing spotlight features, and bracing for potential lawsuits. This isn't just a fall from grace. It's a total collapse. And no matter how deep his pockets are, or how high his name once soared, the fall is undeniable and irreversible. In the words of 50 Cent, the game's over. But we're not done. Because what's unraveling now is more than Diddy's fate. It's an entire ecosystem. The handlers, the agents, the enablers, the protectors, the ones who turned a blind eye, the ones who knew and said nothing. They're all being dragged into the light. Some of the names attached to Diddy's legacy are now in damage control mode. Contracts are being terminated. PR firms are cutting ties. Artists who once considered him a mentor are going radio silent, afraid of guilt by association. Behind closed doors, there's panic. People who thought they were safe because they weren't at the center of the scandal are realizing they were part of the machinery that allowed it to exist. And now, they're wondering how long until their phones ring. How long until the subpoenas land. Even more chilling, some insiders are beginning to leak. Anonymous sources, whistleblowers, former staffers. They're talking. And what they're describing is not only damning, it's systematic. From luxury properties wired with surveillance to controlled access parties where phones were confiscated, where certain guests were always watched while others moved freely. It all points to a deliberate strategy to gather leverage, to secure silence, and to protect the brand at any cost. This was never just about indulgence. It was about control. Psychological, financial, emotional. And now, with the court ruling standing tall, that control is slipping away. Diddy's name, once synonymous with opulence and hustle, is now a cautionary tale. A symbol of what happens when power is abused and accountability comes knocking. More than that, it's a wake-up call. Because if it can happen to someone as insulated, as powerful, as wealthy as Diddy...
We have this hearing next week about whether to expedite the sentencing, happening before October 3rd. If both sides agree, great. If they don't, what is a compelling legal argument for the defense to say, we want this sentencing to happen much sooner?
Well, I mean, we know that behind the scenes, what they want, of course, is they expect a chance that he's going to be released. So that's their big motivating factor, of course. Whether the court abides by that, I mean, it is a substantial change in circumstance. He was acquitted of all of these serious charges, right?
But he was just denied bail. He was denied bail again.
He was denied bail again, and I actually learned that on your segment yesterday afternoon as I was sort of doing my preparation for this. But we have to remember that one of the things that he got in trouble for, that Diddy got in trouble for in jail, was using other inmates' calling number. Remember that? So he was calling witnesses in the case from jail using other inmates. That was a direct affront to that judge. That was remember, we had all those attempts at bail that were denied at the very beginning of the case, one after another. This judge, and it's the same judge who's going to sentence him, denied that over and over again. And you and I, again, in another conversation we had on your show, we both said he is screwed now, that he's got no chance because he's violating the rules of the court while in jail. So if he's disobeying the rules of the jail and the directive of the court while he's in custody, how can he be expected to actually follow the terms of a bail agreement when he's out of custody?
Right.
And I think that chicken is coming home to roost again. I mean, I think that's what happened yesterday afternoon. That any judge who has a criminal defendant who behaves like that, that is an affront to the court itself. It's disrespectful to the court. And it's almost like he couldn't get out of his own way there at the beginning. But he had an excellent defense team.
He does. So assuming for a moment, whenever the sentencing hearing happens, right? Let's say it happens in a month from now. Let's say it has October 3rd. The question is, what's his sentence? As we mentioned, the prosecution in a filing from yesterday talked about the guidelines range being 51 to 63 months. Now, this is before a pre-sentencing investigation and report. Now, the defense, right, they want 21 months. He's already served almost 10. Talk to us about what you're thinking here, because there is no minimum. The maximum's 10. If the judge were to combine it together, like you said, 20 years, feels highly unlikely that would happen. As we're talking, what is a pre-sentencing report investigation? How would it affect this? What do you think the judge is going to do? There's so many different factors to consider here. And it's not like a murder case when it's like, okay, we know what's going to happen. It's like life in prison without the possibility of parole. It's a given. There's room here. What do you think the judge is going to do?
So in federal court, this is actually very interesting. They rely very heavily on those pre-sentencing investigations. So essentially what will happen is there'll be a federal probation officer, and they do these for almost every case, where they will do their own investigation, where they'll talk to family members, they'll talk to employers, they'll talk to neighbors, and they will make a recommendation to the court as to suitability for release, suitability for time. And that's something that federal...
It can happen to anyone. No one is beyond reach. Not anymore. You can feel the fear in the industry. Conversations are shifting. Events are being canceled. Projects are being shelved. Media outlets that once stayed silent are now scrambling to investigate, to get ahead of a narrative they used to avoid. And for the victims, both known and still hiding, there's a new energy, a new sense of visibility. A sense that maybe, just maybe, they'll be believed. That their stories matter. 50 Cent isn't letting up either. He's already hinted at more revelations to come. In his words, this was just step one. The rest? Y'all ain't ready. Whether you love him or hate him, one thing is clear. 50's voice is shifting the conversation. He's not just clowning on social media. He's pushing the culture to confront what it ignored for too long. This moment is bigger than a single man's sentence. It's about justice, about truth, about breaking a cycle. Diddy breaking down in court wasn't just a personal moment. It was a symbolic one. It represented the crumbling of a facade, the shattering of an illusion. And while the courtroom may have emptied and the cameras moved on, the impact of that verdict, of those tears, is still rippling through the world of entertainment. Through the halls of power, through the lives of those he affected. The legacy Diddy leaves behind will never be what he hoped for. Not awards, not #1 hits, but a warning. When you build an empire on fear and secrecy, it will eventually collapse under the weight of truth. And now, with prison on the horizon, the man once known for making others cry tears of joy at his lavish parties is now crying alone. Because the game has changed, and no one, not even Diddy, is untouchable anymore.
I think 10 years for both crimes, of course not. You ain't gonna do that. You have did this trafficking on several occasions. You got away with a lot of stuff that was thrown out of the court and everything. I think fairness from a judge, would say 5 years. We kept you in jail all this time. You have did at least one. With good behavior and all that other stuff, you probably take off another 1.5. So he gonna do at least 2.5 years. That's the best he can do as a judge. That's fair. Now, if he get anything less than five years or time served, dude, it's clear that there's something wrong with this daggone system. It is so clear. Look at this. More bad news for Diddy. Man, it's like it can't stop. I don't even know who. Let me see what this is real quick at the end of
Guys,
this.
it's your favorite federal informant. Listen.
All Oh my goodness, man. We might as well go ahead and do this one right here. Hey, I'm gonna get on up out of here. Y'all take it light, take it slow. Y'all tell him Uncle Mike told you so. Peace out.